Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted a healthier, happier life with greater spiritual growth and vibrant physical health, then do we have the Wheels of Life show for you. Today I'll be speaking with Dr. Anodea Judith, a groundbreaking writer and spiritual teacher and one of the preeminent experts on chakras and the author of one of the most fascinating and perhaps most important books I've ever read, The Wheels of Life. And that's just what I want to talk with her about today, about a guide to the chakra system and how it can change our lives. That plus we'll talk about the elephant, the goddess pose, the wood chopper, making the sun, playing charades, a vow of silence, the importance of mantras, and what in the world a laughing circle has to do with anything. Gotcha. So welcome to the show, Anodea. Are you ready to shine?
I am absolutely ready to shine.
Woohoo!
Through all my chakras.
Excellent. And hopefully you can help impart or share with us today how we can do it through all of our chakras as well.
As well. Absolutely.
So, beautiful. Before we dive right into things, I want to take you back in time. Way on back. Can you tell us what happened in meditation in 1975?
We're going back 42 years now. Well, I was definitely into yoga and meditation, and I had this little sheepskin rug that I meditated on, and I lived in a little attic apartment, and every day I was really meditating quite a lot. And this is the only time this has ever happened to me in my life. I had an out-of-body experience where my awareness or whatever rose up out of my body. I looked down at myself sitting there in full lotus meditating, and there was a book on my lap, and it was on the chakra system, and it was written by me. And at that point, I knew that was what I was to do. I was all set to go to art school. I had my application all filled out, the check made out. I hadn't mailed it in yet. And I completely changed course and decided to follow metaphysics and the chakra system and yoga and psychology.
Did you know anything about it at the time? And was it oh, awesome, this is what I'm going to do? Or kind of, because I ended up doing this big bike ride across the country after a dream years ago. Was it kind of a, oh, crap moment?
Well, when I first read the word chakra, and it was in a book by Ram Dass, The Only Dance There Is, as soon as I read the book, I had this shot of energy come through me. And I was very intrigued. And as I read more about it, and everyone was talking about the bad, evil, lower chakras and the spiritual, perfect, higher chakras, I thought, that isn't right. Just intuitively, I felt, why would we have 7 energy centers if we're supposed to suppress the lower 3 just to get to the upper ones? That's a misinterpretation. And as I did more research into the old text, I found that wasn't so at all. It's really a tantric system, which is the integration of heaven and earth, mind and body, spirit and matter. And it puts it all on a continuum where we are the connection between heaven and earth for creating heaven on earth.
I love it. And so let's go from there and let's talk about specifically what the chakras are.
Okay, so they are commonly known as energy centers. The word chakra means wheel or disc, and I think of them as programming on a old-fashioned disc when we used to have to put discs in our computers, like a floppy disk, programming that contains different aspects of our being, like our survival program or our language program or all the things we've seen and remember. And my classic definition is chakras are organizational centers for the reception, the assimilation, and the expression of life force. In other words, my emotional center is where I take in feelings from people. I can feel if you're depressed or you're happy. I assimilate that. I turn that into my own feelings, and maybe I express, oh, I'm happy too. Or I'm sad about that too. Or I'm scared too. And so I'm taking it in, assimilating, expressing. We take in food, we digest it, we express it into energy. You're taking in these words right now. You're assimilating them. Maybe somebody hearing this will go tell somebody else, oh, here's what I learned today. So this is what we're doing on each one of the levels with the chakras.
Beautiful. And then what's a mythical rainbow bridge?
Ah, in mythology, the rainbow bridge is that which connects heaven and earth. And the myth says that when the rainbow bridge breaks down, and heaven and earth are no longer connected, then we will be facing doomsday. Now, all we have to do is listen to the news today and see a lot of things that are pretty scary as we go towards climate change emergency and, today's talk of pressing buttons. And so it's my belief that restoring the rainbow bridge within each and every person puts heaven and earth back in connection. And it's what we can do, one thing we can do to avert doomsday.
And I like the whole, well, I personally have an aversion to doomsday.
Oh, yeah, I think we all would.
So let's talk more about the chakras, and we'll double back onto human evolution because I found that absolutely fascinating. Where are the 7 chakras located?
Okay, so the first one, you're sitting on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's at the base of the spine. If you ever lose that chakra, just sit down. There it is. You can bounce up and down in your seat a couple times to give it a little stimulation. And it is called the root chakra. Its Sanskrit name, Muladhara, actually means root support. And so it connects with the lower part of the body, the 2 legs, which I see as roots that go down into the earth. And by plugging those legs in, we bring energy up into the root chakra. That's our life force. It's our survival consciousness. The second chakra is in the abdomen. The hips, the low back relates to the genitals, the womb for women, and it's the element water. And so it's about the flow and movement and change. The third chakra is in the solar plexus, and its element is fire. So this is the fire of our digestion, the vitality of our get up and go, our ability to turn energy into action. That's our power chakra in the solar plexus. The fourth chakra is over the heart. It's the softer air element. It's about love, connection, balance, relationship. The fifth chakra is located in the throat. Mm-hmm. Its name Vishuddha means purification, and it's about sound and communication, music, rhythm, resonance, vibration, sympathetic vibration, or coming into resonance and harmony. The sixth chakra is known as the brow chakra. It's really in the center of the head. If you drilled side to side and front down and from the top down, that intersection would be where the third eye, as we call it, would be located. It's about seeing and intuition and dreaming and creating a vision. And then it's all run by consciousness, which is connected purely with the crown chakra. And when I say purely, I mean the crown chakra is about pure consciousness, but it's consciousness that sees and consciousness that speaks and consciousness that loves and knows what to do and feels and operates the body. So it's actually turtles all the way down.
I like it. And maybe we'll come back to turtles here. So what are opened and closed chakras, and how do they come in? Is there a particular order to them?
Well, there isn't an order to what's open or closed, and I have a little more sophisticated way of looking at that.
Please. From
my 40 years of working with people, is that a chakra can be excessive or deficient. In other words, it can have too much energy, sort of like the way your belly feels after a Thanksgiving dinner. You know, there's too much food in there, and it's like, oh, nothing's moving. That would be excessive. Things are really packed in, and it's a kind of blockage. Or deficient, I'm just going to close it up tight so nothing fits through. And deficient chakras come from an avoidant strategy. So I want to avoid feeling my feelings. I want to avoid speaking up. I want to avoid taking a risk. I want to avoid opening my heart. Those create deficient chakras. And the excessive chakras are created by compensating strategies. Oh, well, nobody loved me when I was growing up, so now I want everybody to love me. Or I felt powerless when I was growing up, so now I have to really puff up my power and be the biggest and the baddest. So we can overcompensate or we can avoid, and that energy then follows our action.
And not only does energy follow our action, but it sounds like each individual chakra can generate the shape of our behavior of the physical body as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And really, chakras exist in the energy body, or what they call the subtle body. And energy is the connection between mind and body. In the same way that you have a computer that you're using right now, it's loaded with software. But if you had a power failure and you didn't have batteries, everything would be useless.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the electricity going through your computer that allows the hardware and software to connect. Well, the life force going through my system allows my mind, which is all my software, to connect with my body. And so my programming is saying, oh, sit up straight and pull your shoulders back. Take a deep breath, smile. My programming is saying, oh, don't speak up. Somebody will think you're a fool, or, you better take care of yourself or you're going to get taken advantage of. I mean, all that programming tells the life force energy where to go in the body and where not to go.
That makes sense. So I want to dive into each of the chakras specifically in a minute, but a few things before we get there. First off, we're talking about how the chakras are working, whether they're working well or not. Can we inherit chakra challenges?
Well, I think we do get things passed on to us by our parents. So let's say your parents are very fearful.
Mm-hmm.
They had some kind of trauma, they're fearful. They can pass that fear on to you unconsciously. And you may carry that fear and not even know what it's about. So yes, we do. And certainly the way our parents raise us has a lot to do with the programming of our chakras. And I actually believe that we carry stuff from past lives. I can't prove that because there's not much way to prove that, but I think some people come more developed in one chakra, less developed in another. It's their work in this lifetime to work that issue through. And it might be an issue of communication or love or power or pleasure or, being in their body.
Does karma have anything to do with that?
Well, karma is what we create by the simple act of living.
Mm-hmm.
We can't help but trample some ants and harvest food and, use energy. We can't help it. And so that's a natural debt that we incur. We pay it off with our dharma, dharma, and our dharma is our work,
Mm-hmm.
our offering, whatever it is that we contribute to the world.
Thank you. What's Shiva and Shakti?
Well, they are the names of the god and goddess of many, two of many gods and goddesses in Hindu mythology. But they are said to be paired
Mm-hmm.
and lovers that are constantly searching to unite with each other. And so they represent the polar opposites of pure consciousness and energy and matter. So Shakti is really, the name means energy. And she is the originator of everything, all the raw primordial energy. Shiva, with his intelligence, when he meets with the energy of Shakti, creates form. So now that energy can go into something. So the two of them create everything that exists. And it's said that they are love to abide in the heart. So Shiva is the masculine pole, also called Purusha in
Mm-hmm.
yoga terminology, and Shakti is the Prakriti, which is the ground of being.
Beautiful. If we could continue along those lines, maybe you can tell us real briefly about currents, and are both currents important?
Yes, so I talk about several currents that go through the chakras connecting them. The most obvious one that most people are familiar with and think the chakras are all about is from the bottom up.
Mm-hmm.
And in that current, you're going from earth to water, which is a little freer and more fluid than earth, to fire, which I can run my hand through, to air, which is invisible, to sound, which can even travel farther, to light, which can travel from a distant galaxy, to consciousness, which is theoretically everywhere at once and non-material. So as we move up, we are liberating to freer and freer states of being. And so, for a person, that means liberating from our fixed forms, our habits, our addictions, our unconsciousness, and becoming liberated because we become aware of that and choose to do something else, and we move toward higher consciousness. But that's only half the journey. The other half is the descending current, which is I call the current of manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where we begin with an idea, a thought, a conception. Oh, I want to do this. I want to create a radio show. I want to write a book. And then we visualize it. We imagine, how would I do that? What would it look like? We talk to people about it. Hey, I have this idea. I want to do this. Or I write a book proposal. We find the people to do it with, because nothing gets done alone. And then we make a plan and we give it our will and our power, and we move things into place with our passion until we create the density of a physical manifestation. And that's the manifesting current.
And so I can hear people, and it was something that you talked about directly right at the beginning, people who think all that matters is getting to the upper chakras. Then what you're really talking about is, in a sense, not being grounded, not being able to manifest in this world because you're all air up there.
Exactly. Sometimes in psychology, we call it a spiritual bypass. Let me go all to this transcendent place when I haven't really worked my stuff out down here on the earth plane. And yeah, I can't pay my bills and I don't but I'm spiritual. So really it's an integrative system. And so in that way, it's a profound formula for wholeness. If you address your life on each one of these levels, you have a recipe, as it were, for becoming whole.
Beautiful. Can you tell us real briefly, what is Kundalini or Kundalini Shakti?
Okay, so Kundalini Shakti is the whole name. So it is a form of the goddess Shakti, who is said to take the form of a serpent who is curled 3.5 times around the base chakra. And when ignited or when stimulated, she wakes up and she uncurls and she starts to wind her way through the chakras, piercing each one. And of course, this is theory, but there is an energy of awakening that can shoot through your system like, a lightning rod. And usually when people have it, they feel very trembly and they feel a kind of, serpentine motion, sometimes going through their spine. And they make, spontaneous movements called kriyas. They could be mudras. And it's a healing force of awakening, but a very, very powerful healing force. Most of it is seen as something that moves upward. It's a very mysterious force. Nobody really knows exactly what it is or how to trigger it. Some gurus are able to trigger it just by, being in their presence. We call that Shaktipat. Other people get it triggered spontaneously from lack of sleep or meditation or practicing Kundalini yoga. And some people practice Kundalini yoga and they never get a Kundalini awakening. And some people are truck drivers and never have done a thing in this and they get Kundalini awakening. So it's a very mysterious force.
And something not that there's anything wrong with it, but trifled with lightly.
Yeah, it's really, when it comes on, it is such a powerful takeover of your whole being that it is almost hard to tolerate. It's like plugging yourself into a 1,000-volt light socket. And so the channels really have to be clear. And for most people, what happens is they get a little bit of it and then they clamp down and it gets stuck. And that's called knots or granthis. And the knots in the chakras are what Kundalini wants to pierce through. But what I say in my workshops is not just knot, K-N-O-T, which is tied up, but it's also where we are not, where we have not, where we do not, where we will not. It's all the places where we're not. And we want to open that up so we can be there, be free there.
Beautiful. So let's go from there and let's talk about untying some of the knots. And let's start with what you can tell us more about the root chakra.
Well, so the root chakra is the element earth, and the elements are the most important thing to remember about the chakras. If you just get one word for each, that will give you a sense of what the function of that chakra is. So it's to keep us grounded into the earth, connected into our bodies, connected to our health. We only have one body, and it's only can be in one place at one time. Your mind can be anywhere. You can think about what you did last year on vacation or where you want to go next week. You can, imagine a spiral galaxy 600,000 light years away, but the body is sitting right here. So it's being able to be in the here and now, and it's related to the survival instincts. They are hardwired into the body. And when they are stimulated, a tremendous amount of charge comes up so that we can take care of ourselves, basically in fight or flight. And that gives us the energy, but it's also the entry point of the life force.
Beautiful. So let's talk real briefly about then grounding and what it means to live in an ungrounded culture.
Yeah. Well, we certainly live in a culture that has largely been in denial of the earth, that has, been saying, oh, the earth doesn't matter. We can just trash the earth and use it for our purposes. This is certainly turning around in the last, 30, 40 years, but we've come from a place that was very disembodied. Until we had yoga and people working out and getting fit and paying attention to what they ate, people were really very disembodied. They didn't value their bodies very much. And so this is a movement of coming back to the physical and say, no, this is important. This is not just some piece of trash I carry with me through life. This is my temple. This is where the divine resides. And this is the only vehicle I've been given in this lifetime. And your body's the only thing you'll have as long as you live. You can't even say that about your mind.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So are there different foods that we can eat to help with our chakras and maybe specifically for the root chakra?
Yeah, well, I think of for the grounding, the proteins.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying, whether one should eat meat or not eat meat. That's their personal choice. But we need protein. Protein is the building block of the body. And I find people that don't get enough protein can be very ungrounded. And so proteins in general.
Thank you. How do we assess the condition of our first chakra?
Well, the body shapes itself around the chakras. And since the first chakra connects to the earth through the legs, you can tell a lot by looking at the legs. Does somebody have a big body on top of little skinny legs? Well, they're probably not very grounded. And because they're not grounded, their body's kind of puffing out because they can't send that energy downward. Or do they have really heavy legs, meaning that they had to ground a lot of energy and didn't have the luxury of just being able to let go? Maybe they had to ground a lot of energy in their family, or, they didn't have anybody there for their survival, so they had to overcompensate there. So an excessive chakra generally makes a bigger body, more earth, more matter. And a deficient chakra tends to make a very skinny body. I don't want to have a lot of material substance. I like to be thin and light. So that's one way of looking at somebody and assessing that chakra. The other is, how does survival go in your life? Do you manifest your needs? Do you pay your bills? Do you have enough prosperity? Are you doing your right livelihood? Or are you constantly searching for your next meal and moving from place to place and not being able to stay rooted?
If we have somebody who's very spiritual, had a lot of spiritual experiences, they're meditating, they feel like they've got it going on in the spiritual side of things, but they're scared, how do I keep the roof over my head, and I can't find a way to pay the bills, I'm not even sure where to get my next paycheck. Is there a first chakra challenge going on?
Yes, absolutely. Because they have to meet with, and we have to accept in the physical world that everybody has the challenge, or just about everybody, unless you're born wealthy, to figure out, the way I put it, what your coin is going to be. To figure out some way to make a living. And maybe you're an artist and you can't make a living at that, so you pick some other thing that you can do that allows you to do art in your spare time. That's fine. But we all have to take responsibility that we have to provide for ourselves in some way. And that's being grounded. And sometimes spiritual people say, oh, well, somebody's just going to take care of that. The divine's just going to take care of that for me and it's going to fall in my lap. And it sometimes does, but it's not something you can count on.
How do we then open or get our first chakra into balance?
Well, I have an exercise where you just stand and you have your heels out a little bit wider than your toes, and the knees are soft, they're bent. You inhale and bend your knees. You exhale and press down and out with your feet. and you do it very slowly. And then what that does is it charges up the legs. Charging up the legs is like plugging the two prongs of a plug into the wall. And then your television set can receive on all these different channels. Well, the chakras are different channels. My body's like the TV set, but I got to plug in order to be able to receive. So we plug into the earth, and that's a way to begin to get grounded.
Awesome. And since you talk about plugging into the earth, and I admit to a bias here, my wife and I wrote Barefoot Running and we wrote Barefoot Walking. Can you tell us the benefits of getting barefoot, maybe barefoot and jogging?
Oh, wow. Well, I think that it's really important for the bottom of our feet to feel contact with the real earth. We walk around in shoes all the time. We walk on cement. We walk on boards. We walk on carpet. That's all very nice, but the human body and the nervous system was designed for uneven ground, for, the give and take. The earth has a little give to it, when we run, which cement doesn't. I wouldn't want to run barefoot on cement. And there's also a field, a resonant field of the earth, and it is said that when someone is standing barefoot, I was almost going to say naked, was standing barefoot on the ground, their electromagnetic field around the body matches that of the earth. Schumann's
resonance. Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's go from there. Let's jump into chakra number 2, water.
Okay.
And this is just brilliant. So thank you so much. Why is it called the water chakra?
Well, this is where, we have our bladder and the womb. A child is born, grows in the amniotic fluid of the womb. Sexuality involves exchange of fluids. Everything is very watery there. And also the wateriness of emotions. Oh, I'm going to cry. There's a movement and a flow to that. So water, once we get the roots in the earth, well, the next thing we have to do is water them, or they're not going to grow. Once we find our way into our vehicle, our body, well, there's no journey unless the vehicle moves. So the second chakra is to get the energy moving inside us, to get us moving out into the world, to even, we have the expression that when you feel something, oh, I was very moved by that. Or that's a moving piece or a moving poem, or, when we watch cinematography, we call it a movie. And we like things that make us feel something. So feeling is a kind of movement through the body. In fact, emotion comes from the Latin e meaning out and movere to move. So emotion is the moving out of energy.
Beautiful. Going along those lines of movement and emotion, what's the pleasure principle?
Well, it is natural for a body to move toward pleasure and away from pain. Now, people, who are into S&M and other things are always, say, well, what about this? Well, they're choosing that because they find pleasure in that in some way, but it's still, we choose for pleasure, you're to the best that you can. Do you want chocolate or vanilla? Well, you choose the one you like better. So we tend to expand in states of pleasure. We relax, we expand, the energy flows. In states of pain, we tend to contract. And when we contract, the energy doesn't move as well. So if I was going to rub your shoulders, you'd go, ah. If I was going to start hitting you, you'd go, oh. And, you'd retreat from me. So that's, and Freud called it, was the basic pleasure principle of the organism to move toward pleasure.
Thank you. And what does sexuality have to do with the second chakra?
Well, if we take all the aspects of second chakra, movement and feeling and fluidity and desire and emotion, and we wrap them all up, they all are facets of sexuality. And, when I talk about childhood development, and the child goes through their second chakra phase of taking the world in through their senses, it doesn't mean that they're sexual in the way an adult is, of course. But when we later get to adult sexuality, all the facets of our freedom to be in our body and to pursue pleasure and to state our desires and our needs and to be able to relate to another person all get wrapped up in the realm of sexuality.
Wow, and it sounds like if we took the reverse of that, and there are challenges in the child's life where they're they're stuffed down, squashed, whatever it is in that development of the second chakra, that can express itself then in sexuality challenges later on as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So on that note, it's a perfect segue. What do we look for to assess the condition of our second chakra?
Well, if you take the water element, you can kind of say, do I do too much of this or not enough? Water makes life juicy. So water is necessary for things to flow. And when, you read a very boring book, you say, oh, that book was really dry. You eat a cracker that's really dry, it's not very pleasant. And it really means, eat that cracker, it doesn't move very well. Mm-hmm. So is your life dry and boring and not much pleasure in it? Do you feel not very happy and not very connected with other people? You probably have a deficient second chakra. Are you indulgent? Do you want every pleasure that comes along and you can't resist the chocolate, or you can't, get yourself up in the morning, or you have to follow everything? Are you highly emotional and you're just losing your emotions all over the place? Then you're probably an excessive second chakra. And I want to say we can have little bits of excessive and deficiency in the same person in the same chakra. So somebody might be highly emotional and not very sexual, or highly sexual and not very emotional. It's just different ways of compensating and avoiding.
So if we find our second chakra is out of balance one way or the other, what do we do about it? How do we begin to take care of that?
Well, the Sanskrit name of the second chakra, Svadhisthana, means one's own place. So the first step is to come back to your own place inside yourself and say, what is me here? What is my sexuality? Not to be defined by anybody outside. What are my needs? And to come back into your core and acknowledge what is there. What are the emotions that are coming up? To work through the emotions that have either been repressed, or to start to hold back on them and let the charge build up to another chakra.
And is there a physical movement that we can do as well?
Well, certainly anything that moves the sacrum back and forth. In yoga, a really, really common thing many yoga classes start with is the cat-cow, where you're on all fours and you're rounding your spine, and then you're arching your spine and you're going back and forth. So anything that gets movement through the hips, belly dancing is great, or just ecstatic dancing. I mean, just put on some music and move your body is great second chakra.
Sounds like a great opportunity to get a hula hoop as well.
Absolutely. That would be great. Yeah.
Woo!
Get those hips moving.
I like it. Let's jump into chakra number 3, fire. And I'm kind of jumping the gun, but I can't help thinking about the solar eclipse that's coming up.
Oh, I know. Yeah. And everybody says it's going to be fiery. And we are talking about, we're hearing Trump say fire and fury like the world's never seen, as these two men jockey for power. Let's see, I won't go there, but I will say in the third chakra, this is our fire chakra, which is the metabolism of our food into energy. That's where we get our fire, our digestive fire. And that gives you energy to do what you do in the world. And yet that energy can be blocked. You can say, oh, I'm not so sure I can do it. Maybe I shouldn't take a chance. Maybe I should let somebody else do it. Or we can be dominating and aggressive, and that would be an excessive third chakra. But ideally, it's about mastery, that we can get our life force energy to move in line with our intention. So
huge.
I intend to do something, and I do it. I make it happen. I intend to meditate, or I intend to do my yoga, or finish my taxes, or finish a book, and we use our will to fulfill that intention. And what we do it with is our energy, of course. And when we do that successfully, we feel a sense of accomplishment and self-esteem.
So will, self-esteem, another word that would come in here would be power?
Yes, absolutely. And that is our power to do what we say we're going to do, to do what we intend.
There's one challenge that I've heard of with the third chakra. Maybe you can address. It's a cycle of fear and withdrawal.
Well, we have to be present to win. And when we're afraid, that fear makes us contract. Just like pain in the second chakra makes us contract, fear makes us contract. Oh, I'm not so sure. I'm going to shrink back. And that's the opposite of power. So we need to be grounded in order to have power. Just like you say, well, you don't go to court unless you have a leg to stand on. right?
Ta-da.
It's like you've got to have some ground to own your power and own it safely. And I think sometimes when people are too dominant and aggressive, they're not really in their true ground. They're trying to compensate for a feeling of powerlessness.
So how overall do we assess then the condition of our third chakra?
Well, this is all soft tissue here. It's the only chakra that has only soft tissue in front.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can kind of poke your hands in there, and for some people, it's a little too soft. And for other people, it's just hard as a rock. So the too soft is, like you're a little too soft with your power, find some backbone, get that fire moving up. Alexander Lowen said anger was energy that moved up the back body and held the body upright. So if we sag, if we collapse at the third chakra, that's a kind of deficiency. But other people are just like, I can put my hands on them and it's hard as a rock and I can feel that vagus nerve pumping or the artery pumping, pump, 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 pump.
Mm-hmm.
And I get some people in my workshops, it's not about finding their power. It's about stepping back a little. They've been going, doing, accomplishing, and they're exhausted. And so they know how to do things. They need to rest. They need to say, I don't have to do it all.
Thank you. What's the importance for the third chakra of focusing on unity?
Well, we burn away our ego in many ways, and our ego is sort of our way we have this separate encasement. And I think we need an ego. It has its place, and its place is in the third chakra. But we want to burn through it into the higher chakras, which is about transcending the ego.
Thank you. And then overall, how do we begin to get our third chakra into balance?
Well, get up and move. Third chakra is the overcoming of inertia. So, do some exercise in the morning, go for a barefoot run, do some breathing exercises. Most people just have coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And get things moving and moving out through your body.
Is there a particular breathing exercise you'd recommend?
Well, from yoga, there is something called Kapalabhati, which is also called the breath of fire. And it's a rapid snap of the diaphragm that gives you an exhale, and then you relax the diaphragm for a passive inhale, and it looks kind of like this. I don't know if you can tell what I'm doing here, but
you look like a horse that's trying to let you know.
Yeah. So it's just the snap, 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 exhale through the nose rapidly. That's the breath of fire, and that stimulates the third chakra.
Beautiful. And then you address it for kids, but I think this might be fun for everyone, at least for me, a laughing circle.
Oh, yeah. It's so fun. Sometimes in my workshops, I have everybody lay down and everybody puts the back of their head on somebody's belly.
Mm-hmm.
And we just start going, ha, ha, ha. And then people start doing it. And the whole thing is so silly that next thing you know, people are just really laughing hard together. And it's a great release.
Yay. So let's go from there. Chakra number 4, love. And tell us where the chakra is and why I guess I'm saying it here myself. Why is the heart the central point of the chakra system?
Well, let's go to the heart. That's where it's located. And it is the middle chakra in a system of 7, 3 above and 3 below. And its symbol is 2 intersecting triangles like the Star of David, which is also the symbol for the sacred marriage. Heaven coming down into matter, matter coming up into spirit, perfectly balanced and integrated in the heart. So I see the heart as the balance point. And certainly as a therapist for so many years, often working with couples, most couples would come in with, this is out of balance in our relationship. He does this all the time. She does that all the time. I'm carrying all the weight of the money. I'm carrying all the weight of the kids. Something's out of balance. So what is in balance tends to sustain. And if that imbalance can't be addressed, the relationship tends to pair off and go look for somebody else to find that balance with. So it's about love. Its name, Anahata, means unstruck sound.
Ooh.
So after all the struggle and strife and pushing of the third chakra, then we go, the unstruck sound of me being in my center, but past my ego, you being in your center, we find a way to connect. And this is starting to move now toward oneness. It's another dissolution of boundaries.
So then compassion, connection, understanding, those all fit into this.
Yep. Generosity, self-acceptance, peace, forgiveness. These are all aspects of the heart chakra.
So then how do we assess the condition of our fourth chakra?
Well, some people say, well, how can the fourth chakra be too open? But there are people who are so much in everybody else's space and meddling and codependent, and let me do for you, and they're not in their own. That would be an excessive heart chakra. The deficient heart chakra wants to isolate, it wants to criticize, it wants to judge, and it doesn't have the forgiveness and the generosity of an open heart. And usually we can feel that from someone. We say, oh, this person is really open-hearted, or this person is kind of closed-hearted, or they feel shut down. So and we can also just tell, how does the body collapse here and the shoulders round forward? Sometimes people have a little hollow place here, or it's very tender to the touch. Or do they have a military chest, It's all puffed up, but there's no give to it. So we look at how the body, we look at, do relationships work? Do you have friends? How can you be there for other people? Are you compassionate? Those are all aspects.
Thank you. And then how do we begin to open, well, not so much open, balance our fourth chakra?
Well, one way is to work with the breath, because the heart chakra is the element air. And where does the air go? Well, first it goes into your lungs. And where are the lungs? They're in the heart chakra area. And of course, it goes down to the diaphragm as well. But to work with the breath, because the breath will soften you. Breath is soft. And in the chakra yoga book, I talk about, a different key to open each chakra that you can bring into your yoga. And the key that I use, the word that I chose for fourth chakra was soften. When you give somebody a hug, you don't want them to feel like a mannequin. You want a hug that has, yielding, the shoulders wrapping around each other, and there's, something soft to be met with. So it's about softening our boundaries and our edges, or maybe softening our stance on a subject, softening our opinion.
And so to soften, when we're talking about the breath, is there a particular exercise you'd recommend?
Well, I think just feeling how the breath has no edges and boundaries, and allowing the breath to be natural, like let yourself exhale and just wait until the body's natural impulse to inhale again comes in, and just let that inhale happen. And then just wait for the body's natural impulse to exhale. And as we do that as a meditation, you can do it lying down, maybe with your knees bent or a pillow underneath the back of your heart. The body just starts to soften and open, and we become more present.
I love it. From there, let's go into chakra 5, and we were kind of heading in this direction with unstruck sound. Sound.
Sound is the element of this chakra. Sound is how we communicate. Sound is what we make with our breath coming through our throat. And the interesting thing about the Vishuddha chakra, Vishuddha means purification, is this is the narrowest part of the body where the chakras are. From the base of the spine to the top of the head, this is the bottleneck of the chakra system. And so a lot of things have to get sorted out as they come through here. And, you don't communicate everything that goes on in you. You might be hungry right now, but you're not saying it. You're not talking about every breath that comes through. There's a lot of things. We have to sort that out to know what to say. It's also that we need to purify our vibrations, as it were, in order to move into the upper chakras. There is a gradual process of refinement and purification as you come up. And so when we go here, we are purifying for the readiness of sitting in stillness and to coming into the more transcendent upper chakras.
So tell us about resonance.
So sound waves oscillate back and forth. In fact, we can see a sound wave on an oscilloscope because we watch how it oscillates. And every sound has a particular frequency. So if I go, ah, that's a very high, fast frequency. If I go, oh, that's a slower wave. Resonance is when the peaks and valleys of a sound wave lock into phase with another sound wave. And what happens is it doesn't change the pitch of the note, it makes the note louder. So if you have 2 cellos instead of 1, it's going to be a little louder. If you have 3 cellos, it's going to be louder still. So resonance is when they lock into phase. Now, harmony is where there's points of agreement. You might have, 4 beats per minute, and harmony could be somebody doing 8 beats per minute, because every other one is going to lock into phase. That's not the same as resonance, but it is harmony. And all notes have a mathematical frequency, and chords and chord structure are all based on how those mathematical frequencies go with each other.
So what does that mean in terms of us and our chakra, and maybe what we even listen to?
Well, it has been shown, and there was a study I quote in Wheels of Life of William S. Condon, who videotaped people in encounter groups having a conversation. And then he slowed the tapes down to 1 frame at a time. And I think way back then, it was 1/48th of a second. And he noticed that when communication was really occurring, in other words, when you're getting what I'm saying or I'm getting what you're saying, that the movements of the listener and the speaker were synchronized. And whenever I say this in a workshop, and I got, 30, 40 people out there sitting there, I know whether I'm getting across because the heads are bobbing up and down in unison. It's not just one person, but I see all of them are in the same, it's like watching an ocean, the same rhythm. And I go, yeah, they're getting it. We're entrained with each other.
Beautiful. Importance of mantras?
Well, mantras are a vibrational frequency. And the way I look at it is they are designed to wake you up the way somebody shaking your shoulder back and forth might wake you up from a nap. Okay, Michael, time to wake up.
What?
Or an alarm clock, which is a vibration, piercing your sleep. So mantras are a frequency. They're like a simple word or a sound that we repeat either out loud or silently in our head. And it actually has an effect of organizing the subtle body. And mantra is a very common way of meditation. TM, Transcendental Meditation, which I started way back in 1972, was my initiation into it. They give you a mantra, and that focuses your mind, and that vibration kind of comes through and synchronizes the left and right hemisphere of the brain and just brings you into an internal coherence.
Beautiful. So how do we assess our 5th chakra?
Well, that's pretty easy, actually. There's people who talk all the time, and there's people who can barely get their words out, and they're very shy. There's people who talk in a really loud voice, and there's people who always drives me crazy in my workshops, because from flying for 25 years, around to the world to teach, my hearing's gotten bad. But there's always these people in a workshop that raise their hand from the back of the room, and they just have a whisper. And I say, come on, open that throat chakra, let the sound come through.
And then how do we start to open that chakra?
Well, everything that we haven't said gets packed in, like layers of density into the body. So we have to just start unpacking that. Sometimes we don't even know what all those things are. It might have been something you never got to say to your father when you were 7 years old and he got mad at you. So we can start unpacking just by making sound. Make sound when you're driving. Make sound in the shower. Make sound when you're having sex. Make sound when you're running. Make sound when you're doing yoga. When I teach yoga, I'm always saying, okay, take your forehead towards your knee. Let out a sound. Rise up. Oh, and make a sound. And so by just working with sound, we start to unpack that. That's one level. Another level is writing in your journal. In your journal, you're free to say anything you want. Nobody's going to read it, hopefully. You can use any language. You can just speak your truth. And in that way, maybe find out what your truth is. And then, the most challenging step is actually to communicate with another person something you have not said to them or something you need to say, and to learn, successful communication skills so that goes well. Like nonviolent communication or I statements or, imago dialogue or things like that.
So you talk about later in the book about different sounds corresponding to different chakra. And so doing something like Om, or actually there's another one that we would do specifically for the fifth, isn't there?
Well, there are seed sounds, they're
Mm-hmm.
called bija mantras, that are given in the old text for each chakra. So the seed sound of the fifth chakra is hum. And it's interesting. We say, oh, can you hum a few bars of that sound? Or when somebody, says something you didn't quite hear, you go, huh? Or they say something you don't like, you go, hey. So the ha sound just kind of comes out of the throat.
Huh.
Even laughing, ha ha ha.
I like it. So let's go from there. Real quickly, sixth, say that fast, sixth chakra, light.
Yes. So light is how we see. And seeing is how we navigate. I look at the street sign, I look at my map, I look at, I compare the two and I go, okay, I have to turn right here. Or these days it's, our Google Maps and our phone tells us. But, seeing is how we know where we are and orient in space. But even deeper, it's the perception of pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And when we start to perceive pattern, we start to see the big picture. And that's where we start to go into transcendence and wisdom. And the ability to see clearly, to have clarity, just like we want harmony in the fifth chakra, resonance and harmony, we want clarity here. And to see clearly, we need to be able to come to stillness. When a glass of muddy water sits still long enough, it clarifies. When we can look at something long enough from a still and uncluttered mind, we can have the clarity of consciousness that allows us to perceive the big picture, to download a vision, to access our intuition, and to see inside, which is what insight is, and to see outside.
Thank you. What is the pineal gland? It's such a popular term these days, have to do with this chakra.
Well, it's interesting. It's the only single organ in the brain. Everything else is paired. And it's right in the center of the brain. It hangs down in a part of the brain called the cave of Brahma. And it is really right about the sixth chakra location. It's just actually a little bit below the, oh gosh, why am I drawing a blank? Often people put the pineal in seventh chakra. Oh, it'll come to me. I'm sorry. So it's a light-sensitive organ, and in fact, in the embryo and in lower vertebrate animals, it actually is a third eye for a brief period of time, and then it gets buried. And when it's stimulated, of course, it manufactures melatonin, which lets us sleep and dream, and it responds to light. And when it's really stimulated, it can actually manufacture neurotransmitters that give people visions. Which is really what's happening when we're asleep and dreaming. We're seeing visions. Well, there's ways to actually experience that and to have waking visions. And that is a transcendent state.
So, thank you. And then how do we assess the sixth chakra?
Well, there's people that I call head blind. And they just don't notice what's going on. They're in a world of their own. They don't see the nose in front of their face. That would be a deficient sixth chakra. And the excessive, I run into them all the time also. They're the kind of new age, I know everything, you were my mother in a past life, and there's this, and the space brothers are coming down, and and my guides tell me this, and my guides tell me that, and that's kind of an excessive. It's not really sorted out in the ground of the ground of being and the ground of truth.
Gotcha. And then what do we do to balance our sixth chakra?
I think meditate. Meditate, but from a grounded place. And whatever you see, your intuition, your insight, check it out with a friend. Say, oh, I just got this insight. I just got this hunch. Or if you think something's going on with somebody, instead of projecting that on them, say, I feel like you don't like me. Is that true? Check it out so that we're not alone, because we can make up anything in here. And I find people make up all kinds of things. And I go, wow, that's a really interesting experience that I don't think has anything to do with reality.
So, and going from there, let's go right to thought, the seventh chakra.
Yeah. So this is the crown chakra, also known as the 1,000-petaled lotus. And it's because 1,000 in India, what numbers with zeros meant infinite. So it really means infinitely unfolding lotus. And it is what opens us to the great beyond, to the starry night sky full of galaxies, to the downloading of cosmic intelligence, if you will, to guidance, to our higher self. And it's really, on a more mundane level, intelligence and awareness and consciousness. And so it is the cultivation of that consciousness by not focusing on any object in particular.
Mm-hmm.
We have the capacity to go to the infinite. Most of the time, what consciousness is doing is concentrating or focusing, and that's fine. We need the ability to focus to get something done, but we, block out everything else when we're focused by definition. So meditation is a place where we focus enough to get the mind calm, and then we let go of that focus and we dwell in the infinite. And it's a beautiful state that you can then carry down. We can't walk around and drive and do our lives in that state.
Or watch for walking in front of the bus.
Exactly.
So is it meditation both for the 6th and 7th that really helps both of those then?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's nothing like meditation. In fact, I say to my yoga students, I don't care how much asana you do. If you do postures every day and you don't meditate, you haven't started yoga yet.
Woohoo! But when you're talking meditation for people, you're not talking a guided meditation here.
No, I'm talking about the ability to sit in stillness and clear your mind.
Beautiful.
And, it's funny. There's nothing really more formidable, more good for you. It costs nothing. Takes no equipment. It can be done anytime, anywhere, even on a noisy bus.
Mm-hmm.
You can. It's not as ideal for meditation, but if you're really good at meditation, you can do it anywhere. So it's free. You can do it anytime, anywhere, and it's one of the most beneficial things we can do.
Thank you. And if you to see if your chakra, your 7th, is out of balance?
Well, I think there's people who live in their heads and they live in their intellect and they live in this hunger for the spirit. We talked about a spiritual bypass. That would be an excessive 7th chakra. And then there's people that don't really think for themselves. They just follow the party line and they don't inquire. They don't question. They just, they don't research. They don't say, what can I find out here? They just head blind again, or one true, right, and only way. I think that's a deficient chakra. Deficiency also can show up in a kind of cynicism. Yeah.
Thank you. How do we foster, moving from there real briefly, and we'll do a quick wrap up here and maybe time for a very brief meditation. How do we foster healthy chakras in our children?
Well, that's a great big question. My book, Eastern Body, Western Mind, is all about childhood development and chakras. So, and there's also an appendix in Wheels of Life that does that. I don't think we can get that into the last 2 minutes. I would just say understand what developmental stage they're at and support them in that.
Oh, beautiful. And real briefly, evolution, humanity, where we are in terms of our chakras.
Oh, this is one of my favorite topics. I feel that we are at the end of the 3rd chakra era, which was organized by power and power over. So authority and obedience was what made society work at a time when we didn't have technology and we didn't know how to read and write. We were like children, and we had to coordinate cities of 50 to 100,000 people living together without any of the things we take for granted today. That fell to a strong man to give the orders and to have them be followed by the rule of the law. And we've been in that for about 5,000 years, and we see it collapsing all over. Even though it's very good at what it does in certain ways, there's a cost. But humanity's been growing up. We can read and write. We have the internet. We have tools of power in our own hands, the tools to go where you want, to communicate, to create a radio show, to record, to make movies. And now we are moving up to the heart. And I say it's the movement from the love of power to the power of love. And it's going to come through an initiation, and I think the things coming down on this planet are going to be humanity's initiation into the humbleness that will let us open to the heart.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Where can people go to find out more and to find your beautiful books?
Well, my website, AnodeaJudith.com. That's ANODEA, Judith, JUDITH.com. I also have another website, SacredCenters.com. And if you want the manifestation principle, creatingonpurpose.net. The stuff on the global heart is globalheartawakens.com. So I have several. But if you go to AnodeaJudith.com, you can find your way.
And if you go over, if you didn't catch AnodeaJudith.com, come over to InspireNationShow.com, and we'll get all the links to get you over there as well. Real brief question. What personally brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
When people get it. I feel that the chakras are a map that gives us a way through, and it gives me great joy. When I'm teaching a workshop and I see people get it and they have an awakening, they have an opening, something clicks for them, they get joyful, that gives me the most joy of anything.
Beautiful. Any last words of wisdom you want to share with people today?
Well, the thing that ties it all together is the core. So we want to be in our core. And I say everything has a core. Even not only the core through the center of your body, but your arms have a core. Every finger has a core. Every blade of grass has a core. So as we align in our core, then our cores can align with each other. And that is how we connect heaven and earth.
Awesome. And would you have time for a really brief meditation?
Well, the really briefest thing I tell people is to close your eyes, go inside, and extend your roots down. Press your sitting bones down into the chair. Take your tailbone slightly to the back and root down into the earth. Both feet flat on the floor. Uncross your legs so your feet can make contact with the floor. And as you root down, simultaneously draw up to your crown without pulling the roots up. So you're pushing the top up and the bottom down. And as you do that, it's like the chakras are all strung on a string of a necklace. When you pull the two ends of the necklace apart, all the beads line up. So as you pull your crown up and your roots down, the chakras begin to come into alignment. And as you visualize your core, you are visualizing the energy channel in Sanskrit called the Sushumna that ignites and connects each and every chakra. And from there, it's like an elevator. You can go up and down to any floor in the temple that you want. And so as you close your eyes, breathe up that column. Imagine like the elevator coming all the way up to the crown on the inhale. And on the exhale, see that little elevator of being going all the way down to the root. So it's a practice of drawing energy up your core and down your core with each inhalation and exhalation. And it like cleans out the core so that the chakras have more room to function. And in that, we open to the divine, we bring it through us and down into our bodies. And that is the true meaning of Namaste. The divine in me salutes the divine in you. Namaste.
Namaste. That felt great.
It was very quick because I know we're at the end of the hour.
So, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I think this is going to help get people started. Everybody go out and check out her book. We covered a fractional amount today.
Yeah, I've written 9 books at this point. So that was the first one, came out 30 years ago.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Anodea. This has been a true
Michael.
honor
They
and
were
a treat.
Great questions. All right.
Thank you. For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get the wheels of life, and get those chakras spinning, and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You had great questions. You'd actually done your homework.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!